It's a real pleasure to have Steve on the show, and also to Philippa from QuickBooks Review as a podcaster who I actually got on. I was looking for people to talk about what's happening to book groups at the moment, and because people used to meet in people's living rooms, and that's not really feasible right now, is it?
No, it's not at all.
No, but there are other ways.
There are indeed. We'll come to that in a little bit, and I just want to sort of welcome you. But how are you both doing? I mean, these are pretty weird times. How are you both holding up?
Personally, we're fine. We've got 2 children who are both in the vulnerable group, so we are hiding from everybody. I'm even spraying the bottle of antibacterial spray with antibacterial spray, so I'm really overreacting.
And how are you doing, Steve?
Yeah, no, we're fine. We're okay. We're sort of locked down here. We're all right. But yeah, you can't really go anywhere or do anything. But that's the least of our worries. You know, we're all sort of fit and healthy so far, so it's all good. And Tracy should be watching me. We're watching this, my wife, in the garden.
Hi, Tracy, in the garden. Oh, is it nice? Is it nice there?
It's okay. It was nice earlier on. It's a wee bit colder now.
Hi, Pippa. Hi, everybody joining in. Now, how are you finding it? You can work under these circumstances, Steve.
It's been tricky, I have to say. It's been really tricky trying to work this past sort of week. Yeah. I've really slowed down, and it's just, you know what it is? I think it's a distraction. Distractions affect your creativity, and especially worries as well. And if you're not worried and distracted now, you know, I think you must be a psychopath if you're able to work really well. Craig Robertson is writing like a demon, and I always knew Craig Robertson was a psychopath, so I've proved right.
Do you know what? I think I've suddenly discovered psychopathic tendencies because I'm finding it quite good for work. I don't know whether it's just
really.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I think it's like some way it's like our natural state. I mean, you used to have a proper job, but for years I've done this. I've just stayed at home and made stuff up, or been a journalist, which is allegedly the same thing these days. But so I think I'm sort of more attuned to it. But it is a nuts time, and you know, I mean, everybody I think is feeling, you know, after this time. So how are you? Are you doing work as well, Philippa?
Yes, full time, but working from home. So that's taking up even more time than normal. Actually.
Now we know you as a blogger, obviously, but what do you do when you're not blogging?
My other life, I run investment portfolios.
Oh, really? Yeah. So that must be a curious time to be doing this, because I can't imagine that they're necessarily. Well, I wouldn't like you to speak on behalf of your investment portfolios, but it's a sort of weird time, really.
It's an interesting time, but it's a time of lots of communication with clients, and the jobs normally takes up most of the hours of the day, and it's just even more so the case at the moment. But it's fine, and that's why I love books, because it's something to escape into.
Now, Steve, you've got a book coming up. I mean, I think 50/50 is scheduled to come out over the next month or so, isn't it? Or is it?
Yeah, it's funny the way it's been published. I do quite well in Australia and Ireland, and they like this. See, I'm going to do a bit of promotion here now. This
very good.
Large format trade paperback. Okay.
Hey, hold on, I want to do that as well.
It is a paperback, but it's big. Oh, look at that! Hey. So they love that format, and it sells really well, but it doesn't sell in the UK. So what we're doing is Australia got the book first. It's done really well in Australia. It's been my best book in Australia, and it came out in Ireland last week. And it's only a paperback format in the UK, and that comes out on the 9th of July.
Right.
So it's kind of staggered publication. So it's been a bit weird because there's no bookshops open in Ireland.
I know, this is the thing. There's no bookshops anywhere. I mean, it's just a strange time. I think you just have faith that if people want to read it, they're going to find some way of getting hold of it. I mean, you've got hold of it by the sound of it, Philippa. Are you going to be reviewing it then?
Yes, absolutely. I just finished it last night, it's really good. I was reading the last 50 pages while looking after a child who was ill and high on calcium. And I was sort of in the dark with a little light on, just thinking, oh my goodness, how is it going to end? Because you just keeps you getting to the very last page.
So, Steve, you're making people neglect sick children.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's great. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope the little one feels better shortly.
Oh, no, it's fine, yeah.
Dear me. Well, thanks very much. But, people have been reacting really good to this one, so this is good.
And this is, after Twisted, this is a return to the series, isn't it?
Yeah, it's back to Eddie Flynn. It's just a follow-up. So in this book, it revolves around two 911 calls. So there's a 911 call from a lady called Alexandra who says, "Oh my God, I've just found my father. He's been murdered. He's in his house. I think my sister killed him. Please get here quick." And then there's another 911 call from a woman called Sophia who says, "I've just found my father been murdered in his own house. I think my sister Alexandra has killed him. Please get here quick." Yeah. So both sisters are blaming each other for the murder, and both have had the opportunity to do it, and they are both placed on trial as a joint trial, with Eddie Flynn representing one sister and a new character called Kate Brooks, who's representing the other sister. And you don't know. And the title of the book, it's for the way it was supposed to be written, and I hope it's the way it's read. You'll read one chapter and you'll go, "Oh, it's Sophia. It's definitely Sophia." The next chapter you'll go, "No, I've done it totally wrong. It's Alexandra." And the book flips like that. So I'm hoping people get a lot of fun out of it.
Yeah.
Did that work for you that way then, Philippa?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started thinking it was everybody and any female in the book. I was thinking, oh my goodness, it's them. I really didn't know till the very end, and it was a surprise, which is great.
Oh, that's good to hear. It was quite challenging to write this book because there's 3 points of view mainly. And there's Eddie Flynn, there's Kate, and then there's a third narrator called, simply known as She. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the sisters who is the killer, but you don't know which one it is. So that was quite technically challenging to pull off a character and a whole point of view without the reader knowing who that was. Obviously, the reader thought it was one of the two of them, and that helps it flip between the two of them. But that was quite technically challenging.
Now, on your fourth book, on 13, you really seem to up your game, and you sort of made this decision. I think you just explained that book brilliantly in just a few sentences. And I think you kind of rethought how you're going to write books around 13. Am I right there? That was a way that you're going to actually present these things that you can really, that they're books that are impossible to walk away from almost.
Yeah, that was sort of the way I thought about it. The first 3 books, I was just.
If somehow you missed the audio, we spent all that last time saying how absolutely brilliant Steve's books were, and we just cut that completely out. But we were, and then I was moving on to talk about Philippa about book groups, because the reason I invited her on, because I was asking if anybody was doing any virtual book clubs or anything like that. And Philippa was saying, yeah, I'm actually doing 2. So tell us about them there, Philippa.
Yes, we've got 2 book clubs, one that's been going about 6 years, and there's 10 of us in that. And normally we meet every 2 months. But since we've all been online and meeting via Zoom, we're actually meeting once a week, which is lovely, just to sort of keep in touch, talk about books, but also see how everyone's getting on. And the other book group has been going a couple of years. And there's about 7 or 8 of us, and we're meeting sort of every 10 days, every 2 weeks at the moment. Usually it's about every 6 weeks. That is the Bottle and Book Club. That is a slightly interesting take on a book club.
Could you explain that?
So, yes, we review a book every time we meet, but then also we review a bottle. So the person whose house we're meeting at chooses the book.
Yeah, sorry, I've got a cat here.
Produces a bottle. We try to link it to the book, and that was an interesting one when I was hosting and did 13, Steve's book. I had to find a bottle that related to that.
What was the bottle?
Well, a bit of a story. There's a drink called hierbas, a Spanish drink that has 13 herbs in it. Oh. And I ordered that, and it got smashed in the warehouse, so I couldn't actually. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yes. So yes, it was going to be something with 13 herbs in it to go with the 30 book called 13.
Oh,
I have to say, it sounds disgusting. So maybe you were saved from that.
It's very medicinal, apparently.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
Right. Yeah. I heard that excuse before.
But had you ever used Zoom before this moment?
No, never.
No, I'd never heard of Zoom until this thing kicked off. Last night I watched live from the Center for Fiction in New York they had a Zoom chat with Lee Child and Don Winslow, which I watched last night, and was great and worked really well. You just saw those two guys talking, but you were able to ask questions. Everything, it worked great.
Yes, that sounds brilliant. Well, I have to say, I did a Kaylee using Zoom the other day, which was quite an interesting experience. But anyway, but sorry, that's completely beside the point. But is it keeping people together, do you think? Are the book groups sort of forming a new shape through being digital, or is it working for you?
Yes, absolutely. I think we're coming together even closer because we're, aware of what everyone's going through, and some people are working frontline for the NHS, and we just want to keep in touch with them. And books are part of that, but also the books that we're choosing are probably changing at the moment, going for something a bit different to what we would normally choose. But yeah,
in what way? Darker or lighter?
For one, lighter and shorter. So the one book we're just about to do.
Okay.
Which 130 pages, lighter. So yeah, but that doesn't stop me from still reading all the crime and thriller books.
That's interesting. I mean, I might think about, I'm just knocked out by book groups because I would have never imagined enjoying them, because writing for was such a private thing, reading was such a private thing to me. And I've just been to these book groups and you meet people who have nothing in common, getting on so well because they've agreed to spend 7-8 hours reading a book. And they can talk about that and obviously drink lots of wine. But, it's an amazing thing how it brings people together in this sort of really democratic way, doesn't it?
And you get to read books that you would never normally choose. So it just expands your reading horizon. And as you say, just to have the time with people that you might not normally sit down with and just form the friendships. It's, the book clubs are really important to me. Those friendships are pretty crucial, especially at the moment, keeping in touch with everyone.
Now you've got Andy Hill's been arriving pretty much every day of this, and he says, "Hi Cav, where did the inspiration for Twisted come from?"
It's increasingly it comes from sort of the normal place, which is me and my wife Tracy have a chat about ideas. Between the two of us, we'll knock ideas around, and it came out of that. Couple of different sort of inspirations for it. The J.T. Leroy story was a little bit of an inspiration for it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the ideas came from Tracy, and I just twisted them around and did that. But I wanted to write a book about twists, and because every book that came out around that time was, it's a gripping thriller with a twist you never see coming, and every other book was, it's a twist you never see coming in this gripping thriller. Every book had that extra sort of tagline on Amazon. So I sort of thought, well, what if let's just go for it. Let's just have a book about twists with us. It's all about twists, and it's all about unreliable narrators. So it's kind of a little bit meta. So it's a book about an unreliable narrator, written by an unreliable narrator, because it's a book by J.T. LeBeau. But the idea mostly came from Tracy, and then we talked about it and I expanded it, and then we took it from there.
Now, you're both also podcasters, and until just this feed went down a few minutes ago, I thought this was much superior to podcasting, but of course it wouldn't bother you. So I suppose if the audio goes down on a podcast, you're in deep trouble. But you both came to it. Steve, you're coming up to with Luca doing Two Crime Writers and the Microphone, which is a fantastic podcast and hugely loved and respected in the crime community. And you're coming up to episode 97. Is there any point where do you know how many you're going to go to?
No, as long as we keep enjoying it, we'll keep doing it. It's the idea for it was I love talking to crime writers, and we have so many friends in the community. And the things that I liked about festivals was sort of the conversations you would have around midnight in the bar. And I sort of thought, well, what if we could record that and let other people listen to it? So that's what the podcast is. Most podcasts, it is, well, come on, you've got a book to sell. Come on, let's talk about your book and let's talk about your career. And it's a proper interview. Whereas we don't want to have an interview. Sometimes we do have interviews, but what we really want to do is to have the crack. And like we had Adrian McKinty on there in the other episode. We didn't talk about his book at all. We've had him on previously where we've done that, but we just, I see a message from looking at, we're never stopping. That's the idea for it. So it's not to sell anything or promote anything. It's not meant to be very classy and professional. It's total fun, and it's a proper conversation, long-form conversation about anything. So that's what we wanted to do.
Because I was looking at listening to yours to episode 50, so you're almost half the age of two crime writers with the quick book reviews, Philippa. And at the start of 50, you're kind of like having a little existential crisis about whether you're going to keep this going, aren't you?
Yes, but I've had so many messages already saying, don't, you make me, you know, it's a bit of normal life, it makes me laugh, so yeah, I'm just going to keep going. It's difficult because you do put all yourself into the podcast, and in these times you just think, well, is it the right thing? Life's busy enough. But no, I'm staying put.
And you know, I guess it's also lots of work because you have to review a lot of books.
Yeah, I do read quite a lot of books, about 4 or 5 a week. So that's not normally a problem. And it's just nice to be able to sort of share the love about a book that's brilliant. You want to tell people. And my poor mother is fed up of me telling her about a book. So that's when I started the podcast. Well, first of all, I thought I was going to be a writer, and I tried that and failed. So then I thought, right, what else can I do with books? And that's when I started the podcast.
Well, we all try that and fail ourselves quite often. I was just, because on the last one you were reviewing Lucy Atkins, Magpie Lane, which was, I love it when you get very enthusiastic about a book, and you got very enthusiastic about that one, didn't you?
Yes, it does depend how much chocolate and coffee I've had before I start recording the podcast, and how loudly the dog is snoring next to me. But yeah, I love Magpie Lane. It was just so tense, without being horrible to read, uncomfortable to read, but you didn't know until you got to the end what had happened, a missing child, what was the story behind it. It was great.
Yeah, and I'm using this as a plug now because she's coming on here week after next, I think. I haven't got the date, but I haven't read it yet, so I'll now have to take your word for it. You see, this is what book reviews are for. But Steve, what are you working on now then? Do you have something on the computer as we go?
I do. I can't talk about it, otherwise I'll be killed.
How's it going?
Really well, really
That's
well.
Good.
But I can't. I'm sworn to secrecy as to what's coming next. All I can say is it'll be a surprise.
Oh,
but I'm enjoying it at the moment. Put it like that. But I can't. It's too early to talk about it or say anything about it, I'm afraid.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot as well, Philippa, because I know you're actually a huge fan of Steve's stuff. Did you have anything you wanted to ask Steve?
Yes, many questions, but I'll just ask one. Steve, do you have in mind how many times Eddie will be in the books? Do you have a sort of an idea of the time frame, or will you just see?
Oh, in the individual books?
Yes. Yeah. How many books? Is there a sort of an arc of an overall story you have in mind for him?
Over the course of the series, or one individual book? Over the course of the series?
Yeah, in the series it might be.
His arc is sort of changing. 50/50 is a changing point in the series. Changes things up a lot, and opens it up for the next one. I have written another Eddie Flynn, but I can't really talk about it because I don't know when that will be coming out or what's happening with it, because it's all up in the air. But there is another Eddie Flynn in the can, if you like. But I don't have an overall arc, and I'm just enjoying where it goes because it's changing a lot. There is when I wanted to write the series, I want it to be so any reader can pick up the story at any book. You don't have to read from the first one. You can pick it up. So most of my readers started at 13 and then went back.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no difficulty in doing that. But if you go back to the first one, you'll see that he's a lot of sort of personal demons, and they're sort of following him. But is he ever going to be completely happy and totally satisfied? I don't know. Maybe not. As in, there wouldn't be anything to write about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's an arc that he's going through, and people who have read the books in order might pick it up more. But for the purposes of my career, I wanted that you can pick up any book at any time and see how it goes. But I know I don't have a final book in mind for him or somewhere where he's going to end up. I don't have that yet.
Now, Luke has asked a question, but I'm going to butt in and ask one first because I'm fascinated by the way that you're not the only writer to do this, but set your books in America, which presumably at the time you're writing it, you kind of knew probably more from popular culture and reading American books than from being there. But I wonder if it helps, because you're a civil rights lawyer, a human rights sort of area, and that's a really serious bits of law with stuff you know a great deal about. Does it, by translating it to a different country, does it kind of free you in a weird way? Do you know what I mean? From what you know?
Yeah. Excuse me. It does in a way. I mean, I wrote the first 3 Eddie Flynn novels without ever having been to America at all. I'd never been. 13's the first book I'd written actually having set foot in the country. So it was freeing in a way that there's a lot of legal procedure, which is really boring, even to lawyers. And I don't want to write a legal procedural. It's about the story and keeping the readers turning pages. So for me, it was to get down to the action, the sexy stuff in a thriller and in a courtroom drama, the cross-examinations, the twists and turns. And I can do that really well. I've trained to do that. And I wanted to show people here's what's really going on in the courtroom. So, for example, if you watch like A Few Good Men, you know that scene with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise? You can't handle the truth, and I want the truth. Yeah. If you did that in a real courtroom, you'd be harangued, and people would just be laughing at you. Yeah. That's not how it works at all. So I wanted to show this is how it really works. Here's how it's really dramatic, and here's what's really going on. It's nothing to do with law. It's a lot of it's a kind of a con, and here's how it works. So that was good for me. And to do it in America, you get away from a lot of the trappings of wigs and gowns and all of that boring. I couldn't write a book with someone wearing a wig and a gown. It would just be what? I would be writing a comedy if I did that.
Yeah. It's a challenge for you. This will be next. We want to try that. We want to see how it comes up. But Luca's question is, you've become king of the taglines. How important do you think they are for books? And how long did the 13 one take you? Because the 13 one's brilliant. I think that was the best cover that year. And it's the first time that it really twigged in that the whole design, the title, and the tagline were of a piece.
Yeah, that's right. That was my outline for the book. There's a serial killer on the jury. So that was the first thought I'd had about it. So that I thought, well, let's put that on the cover. And that's how I sold the book to Orion when they gave me a new deal. So I think that works really well. But taglines are hugely important. And I think, there are certain writers who have had a huge established readership, and they don't have to have a big selling point on it because they've earned that, They just put out a book and it's their name on the cover that sells the book. But for someone who doesn't have that, you need that little bit of extra something to put on the cover to make readers pick up this book.
And then Nick Quantrell's asked a question, but it's one you've already answered. Will you write the UK legal thriller? And you want people jumping up and down shouting objection. But yeah.
No, I will never write a UK legal thriller. I've been asked to do it, and I said no. So I won't ever do that. I love John Mortimer's Rumpole of the Bailey series, and they're not thrillers, but he gets it how that system works really well, and the characters are nailed. So I could never touch him, anything that he did, and he makes it funny and charming, and a wee bit scary too. So no, I would never write. It wouldn't work as a thriller in my mind.
Well, listen, thank you. I think, I'll wrap it up and let you get on with your lives. I've taken a huge chunk because you've had to do this twice now. But if you haven't listened to Two Crime Writers on the Microphone, you're a fool. And likewise, I would say as well, please catch up with Quick Book Reviews podcast, because it's really funny and it's really, there's so many books there that it gives great insight to. Anyway, that's quite enough. But listen, Steve, Philippa, thank you so much for coming along and taking a very long tea time. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you both.
Thank you.
All right, and I'm going to press the off button now. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.